Hi, my name is Dan and I'll be showing you how to earn more as a creative by becoming a UX designer. I built this course for web designers and graphic designers who you've seen all the jobs and all the extra pay out there, but you're not too sure what it is. You know it has something to do with whiteboards and post-it notes, but that's it. Let me take you through and teach you all about being a UX designer. You're gonna love this industry. CNN named UX the 11th best job in America. The best bit is that it builds on your existing creative skills, but the salary is almost double what you get from other creative roles. These are the skills you're going to need to become a professional UX designer. We'll talk about the broader range of UX, but also how it applies to you specifically as a creative and a UX designer. We'll create a project together all the way through so you get a really true sense of your responsibilities as a UX designer. We'll give you the skills as well to run your own sessions, to be able to do the research, to be able to do the wireframing through to mock-ups and then the testing. Let me show you how to earn more in this truly amazing career change. If you're ready to move out of the ultra competitive world of graphic and web design, then this course is for you. So join me now so we can upgrade your skills, get that better job and impress your clients. In this video, we're going to look at the 5 phases for being a UX designer. Now, the first is setting the objectives, then it's doing the research, making a mock-up, doing some testing, and then doing the actual build. So the objective is the most important part. That's the bit where you just got to make sure you're asking the right question. It might be for your own work, it might be for a client's work. It's just going back to them and saying, is this, does this align with your business goals? I've done lots of things in the past where I've done a project, got to the end of it and realized, although it was lovely and it looks good and it works, it hasn't got me any closer to where I wanted to be, okay? So making sure at this time, whether it's with your client or with yourself, is just asking yourself, does this get me closer to where I want to be? Does this align with my business goals? So once you've got the kind of question clear, then it's setting your hypothesis. And make sure you set a hypothesis and use the right kind of language for that, rather than setting things like goals or targets. Because setting a hypothesis, say a hypothesis would be, will existing clients pay for photography courses from me? Okay, that would be one of my hypotheses for creating a photography course. Now, instead of just saying, I want to create a photography course, the problem with that is I want to sell photography courses. There is a yes or no, like there's a fail or a success there. Okay, and you can get really dejected when I've launched things and you're like, great, it's definitely going to work, and it doesn't. And the people that worked on the project and myself all get a bit disheartened by the whole thing. Whereas if you change the language to, I will test my hypothesis that existing clients, the goal of it is to test, will the clients actually pay for this? Then you can't lose. Okay, whether it's yes or no, it doesn't matter. Your job is to figure out whether that's, whether that'll happen or not. And so, it's a win-win, and it's a better language to have. So make sure when you are dealing with kind of setting goals, they aren't, all or nothing. Okay, so once you've got a hypothesis, then you're going to move into the research phase. Now, only do they kind of like really impactful research. Some people can get a little caught up in the research phase and spend ages making documents about what you should do. Do the stuff that's easy and relates to you. If you've got, like, say, my projects that are launching new courses, I have a lot of data already on existing clients. I have a lot of web traffic that I can kind of get some research done quite easily to test some things. But say you've got something brand new, okay, it's a new feature for an app or it's a new app itself, okay, there's not going to be a whole lot of research you can do. So do it, but then move on into the mock-up stage, and the testing stage is more important. Now for the mock-up, it's all about what's called the MVP, so the minimum viable product. What can you get going quickly and get tested? Okay, so you want to move to that test phase as quickly as you can. So your mock-up might be just wireframes. It might just be Photoshop flats. It could be Photoshop flats with a bit of InVision interaction. It might be Muse. It might be a reasonably interactive app. Okay, you might need that for an actual to get a good mock-up through to get tested. So it's up to you in the project, but make sure it's just enough. It doesn't have to be the best and prettiest with all the features, just the basics in that mock-up. Then once you move from the mock-up, and then it's the testing. Testing is definitely the phase where, as a UX designer, that's kind of like what your employer or your client, this is the most value they get out of it, okay, is actually seeing the testing and actually see people using this thing, okay? And once the testing done, then you kind of loop back to mock-up and iterate on that mock-up, okay? Say you do some testing, there's going to be problems, there's going to be issues, there's going to be things you didn't think about, and then kind of looping back into that mock-up phase again. Once you've gone through and got something kind of working, okay, and tested as much as you can with the mock-up, then it's kind of working into the building process, actually making the thing. Now, don't feel like that's the end of your role as a UX designer. There's lots you can do once a feature's been launched, or an app's been launched, or a new product's been delivered. There's lots of that kind of continued testing and iteration that can go with live data. Again, there's lots of things you can use to check and work on that. All right, so that's the 5 phases of being a UX designer: objective, research, mock-up, test, and then the build. Hey there, welcome to this video. What we're going to do now is look at the 3 fields that encompass UX. So UX is an umbrella term used to cover a couple of different sections of the UX kind of industry. So they can be broken up into 3 main groups. One is the UX researcher, okay? Another is being a UX designer, and the other one is a UX strategist. Now, if you're working in a small to medium-sized company as a UX designer, you're going to be expected to do all 3 of these. And it's kind of the focus of this class is to cover all 3. But you might decide after doing this course that you really enjoy the UX research part, okay? And you might go off and stick to that. Or you might be a designer or a strategist. Now, yeah, smaller companies, you're going to be expected to do most of it. When you're working in a larger organization, they'll have full teams of UX teams, okay? And you can, and you will be, a specialist in one of these 3 different areas. So research is the kind of bit at the beginning and kind of goes out throughout the design process. And it's the more scientific, it's the testing, the checking, the probing is the research side. Okay, it's quite an analytical role, and you'll be doing things like the user research, okay, that happens beforehand, before the designs get made, then doing the user testing and kind of working with the MVPs and the mock-ups and making sure those goes. You'll be doing things like surveys and interviews, looking at heat maps and eye tracking and all that kind of fun stuff. That's the research side. Now, as a designer, that's the more kind of creative side of UX, okay, the more artistic. So it's more of a kind of a craftsman role. Okay, you're going to take the stuff that the researcher gives you and kind of adapt that to become physical things. And there's a bit of gut instinct mixed with kind of observational stuff, things you've done before, some of your instincts, and some of your experience. But the cool thing about it is that instead of just doing design for design's sake, you're going to have a lot more kind of research to base and kind of like hone and direct your design work. And then you're going to get this lovely feedback loop. Now, if you've never done UX before, this feedback loop is pretty amazing. Whereas before, say, I started life as a graphic designer and it was great. I get to do stuff and I kind of send stuff out into the world. And I think it was great and it went into my portfolio, but that was it. I had no real kind of like measurement device to say, how good was it? Was it better than the last thing I did? Was it better than the guy next to me, or was it worse? Okay, so with the UX, I get to kind of make this stuff based on good research and then get it tested, okay? And have, things come back to me and iterate and change things to know if it was good or bad or got us close to what it was meant to do. Okay, so that's the design side of things. The next side is being a UX strategist. Now, think of the strategist as it's more of a managerial, consultative, overseeing kind of a role. Like a creative director might be in an ad agency. They know the tools, they know how it's done, they've done it before, but now they act more as, they work with the business owners, they kind of have a high level responsibility, and they look deeper into the project and kind of see other things, okay, and question and push back and see if things align. So yeah, the UX strategist is definitely somebody who's a lot more experienced and has a good kind of business acumen as well. Now, what you'll find is that as a, say, UX designer, which I consider myself rather than a strategist or a researcher, is that you need to be able to do both. I love the research side, but I love more the design side. I love that kind of design process, and I love that there's a feedback loop with the research. But I'd be expected in pretty much all of my roles to do all three. Okay, is to kind of keep the job working, push back business goals, as well as the research and the design side of things. And you might find yourself in that role, or you might find yourself, you might be after doing this course, is you love the research side, but the design side doesn't really it doesn't really excite you, so you're going to go down the kind of research side. So you can come at it both ways. Both sides are kind of the research or design sides. They're both really useful to the design process, but quite honestly, most people are expected to do a bit of both. All right, so that's it for the kind of three areas. Let's move on to the next video. Hi, in this video we're going to look at the difference between UI and UX. Now, UI is user interface and UX is user experience. Now, UI is literally the physical design of the process, okay? So it's the opening up Photoshop or Sketch or Experience Designer and actually physically making things, adding fonts and colors, drawing icons. That is the UI process, okay? So you'll be in charge of, picking colors and fonts and deciding things like how should this be displayed in things like tabs? Should it be a big slide bar? Should it be another screen? Okay, it's kind of working out the actual mechanics of the page. That is a UI designer. Now, if you're a web designer and or building kind of app designs already, you'd be considered a UI designer. Maybe you don't call yourself that, but that's what you're doing, the UI. It's looking at things like the nav sandwich and this icon here and deciding, using words like page furniture, okay, and jumbotron and all sorts of lovely, terrible words that you use when you're designing kind of your design side. So that's the UI. Now, UX is a bigger part of that. So if you're a UX designer, you have to have UI skills. So you actually need to do the physical work, but you'll be also expected to do things like the research that informs the UI design and the kind of testing and then the feedback loop, okay, and iterating and changing. So that's the difference between being a UI designer and a UX designer. UI is the kind of a really small part of the UX process, and you can do that just fine by itself. But if you're going to be a UX designer, you need to have an understanding of the kind of pre and kind of post design process. So that's the difference between UI and UX. In this video, we're going to look at you and your UX career. Now, looking at this page here, I love this one, CNN Money. It's the best jobs in America from last year. And a user experience designer comes in at number 14. Just so you know, just in front is a dentist, and just after is an auditing director. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I don't even know what an auditing director is, and I definitely don't want to be a dentist. User experience design is an exciting field to be in it. I'm in it, I love it, and what I really like about it is the measurability. It's my creative stuff, it's all my talents in terms of my artistic creativity, but it's measurable. I can get better at it, I can test it, I can see if people like it or don't like it, what do they like about it, what they don't like about it, and keep editing and going along. So yes, it's a cool career. The other nice thing is that it pays a lot more as well. So if you're a senior, let's talk about senior at UX. I've done a little pay scale report. So this is for a senior graphic designer versus a senior UX designer. And what you'll see is you can go through and do this yourself. I've picked a senior UX designer in Austin, and I've compared them both in the same place. You put in your town. I haven't put in lots of qualifications and stuff, which can kind of adjust this, but it's just a good kind of guess to see. You see the median here is about 100K, and the median for a senior graphic designer is about half that. So there is a big price difference when you get to kind of a UX designer with some experience. If you are brand new, or say you're a really accomplished graphic designer or a web designer, but you're moving into UX, you're gonna have to start at the kind of bottom of the UX pile, which is fine, but you can't expect a big jump. So say if you're on a certain pay bracket now and you're moving in, and you want to move into UX, there's not going to be huge, of equivalent experience, there's not going to be a huge pay difference. But what you will find is that there's a lot more opportunity out there. If you are And if you're looking for a graphic design role, there's very few jobs out there for a pure graphic designer these days, and there is a lot for for a UX designer. So there's a lot, the pay might not be different, but there's a lot more things to pick out of, and you'll have a bit more of a choice of where to work and locations, those types of things. But when you do get to the senior roles, you can see there's a huge price difference. That'll level out a little bit. UX is hot at the moment. But there's a lot of people training in it. You're doing it, but lots of other people are doing it as well, and it will become a little bit more saturated and that kind of like higher price. Let's have a look. For us, the high price is in this 130K here. Now this is data pulled. Where they get their data from. It's good. Good metrics and data to use from PayScale, but don't pin your hopes on a 100K job. If you're living somewhere, if you're living like me in Dublin or in Ireland, the pay is going to be very different. So, the other thing is that people are looking for unicorns at the moment. By that I mean that when you see a job application at the moment, you see so much. The people want so much out of a job application. They're looking for like dirt cheap. They're looking for like 30K a year, and they want somebody who's doing all these things. They're looking for things that people that don't exist. They're looking for people that can do the UX, but also do app development, but also do web development, but also do graphic design and UX design and videography and all these things, okay, for these kind of low prices. So don't sweat it if you are looking. You're like, man, I can't do that. I can do bits of that. And often that's what's happening. So I do it myself. So I'm looking for a new trainer, and I put in skills I want. I want them to do the graphic design ones. So I want them to do InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. But then I do things like I want them to do web. So I want them to do HTML and CSS and JavaScript and Node.js and Angular. And then I go through and I add, I want them to do After Effects, motion graphics, and all these sorts of things. Because there is, there's lots of people to pick from at the moment, okay? And I'm not actually looking for all of those skills. I'm looking for people that have most of them, and they might flip-flop into one camp. They might be web designers who do a bit of video, but not much graphic. Or they might be graphic designers who do a little bit of web, but no video. And it allows me to kind of pick from that pool. Okay, so if you have got jobs and you're like, oh, I'm pretty close to that, but I don't have any of these skills, still apply, okay? Because people are just looking for too much these days. If you have got a job and you're like, oh man, I wonder if I can even apply for it, or you don't even know what the terms are. They're asking for something, and you're not even too sure what that term is. Because we're talking about, UX strategist or a senior UX designer, but sometimes they call them lead designers or middleweights, or if the language isn't confusing for you, if you're not sure if you should apply or how you should get your portfolio together to apply, what they'd be expecting, send me a note, okay? Either through the website or on Twitter at Dan Loves Adobe. Check out our Facebook. There's lots of ways of getting in contact with me, and I'd love to kind of have a look at their ad and see whether, what they're expecting if you need a bit of help. Okay, so there's you in your new UX career. Let's go on to the next video. Hey, in this video, we're going to look at creating your first UX project, or at least getting your first project or getting your first job in UX. What's going to happen is you're going to do the theory, like this kind of course here, and you're going to need some experience. You're going to have to actually work through at least one project. Now, how to get your first project? You've got two options. You can either go off and just do it something personally. Okay, take a project that you might have an idea, a business idea of your own. It might be a project that you've been meaning to start for a friend or for family. Get that going and turn that into this UX project, and take parts of this or all of this kind of theory that you've learned here and put it into practice, so that when you do reach out to, say, your boss, or looking into a career as a freelancer, you can go to clients and explain and have the language and have some sort of experience in the industry to be able to share with them. Now, what will happen in smaller businesses at the moment, nobody's valuing UX. The medium to bigger businesses are, but if you're in a small business and you're working, slogging away, and you want to get into UX, what you're probably going to have to do is go off and just do a project and then share the data afterwards. So big for forgiveness, not for permission. So say you're handed a job and you think this would be a good one to do some of this user experience stuff. And what you can do is just do it on your own bat, on your own dime, in your own time, and share the data afterwards. So it might be a new website you're building, but you can go off and maybe debrand it so you're not kind of breaking any sort of confidentiality agreements, and go off and do some user testing, do some research, and then share those results at the end and say, look, I wanted to get into this. I did this on my own time, and these are the kind of results. These are the things I tested against. I did some A/B testing. I did some user testing, and I feel like this has got us to a better place than maybe what was originally proposed. And going in with that sort of stuff that you've actually done and you've proven, rather than trying to convince them you should do it, show them how well you did do it. Now, in terms of bigger companies, what you might have to do is show them the numbers. Okay, it might be that, say you're designing a website for a company and you're doing the checkout page. That could be a really important one because a lot of customers are lost in that checkout flow. So you might do some user testing and show that, okay, people got from buying, from searching for products to the actual buying or checkout process in 3 clicks with one design and 5 with another. And then you can go and say, look, if you have an attrition rate or kind of, holes in your flow and you're losing clients, on the 4th click, okay, you can actually add some kind of dollar values to it. At least you can infer dollar values that maybe the business owner can start to see and go, oh yeah, I can, 5 clicks is a whole lot worse than 3 clicks. Or it might be that your design changed the fact that people are less confused, and you can kind of add, attribute kind of customer service care calls and, that kind of, there's a cost to a business where they have to, reply to emails and have customer care hotline people. So you can test designs where people get to where they want to go quicker and easier. Going to them with those sorts of numbers can really help cement their wanting you to get more involved with UX, okay, and user design. And if you're doing the personal stuff, go off and do it and pick projects and just go off and do it so that you get a portfolio of UX projects that you can talk about, things you've done when you go to talk to employers. So the most important thing is getting some experience. Any experience, all experience, as much experience as you can. So the name of the game is experience, is getting out and actually doing it and doing your first jobs. And the first couple of jobs might be terrible, but it's all right. You have to go through those phases so that, so you learn and get better and be able to go off and be a bit more confident about the industry. All right, that's it for getting your first job in UX.